Tonight we meet some URI folks who had one international experience. Welcome into My State of Mind. I am Dan York. We spent a lot of time talking about the Charlie Hebdo massacre and, of course, the reaction to it. Seems like a while ago now. I think this winter storm has just kind of like stopped time in its place. But a professor from URI and a student from URI are here. They made a quick overseas trip and actually landed the day after the tragedy and participated in the response to it. And they'll tell their story here tonight on My State of Mind. Thank you for tuning in. It is great to have you aboard. How you doing? I'm a little tight from the roof raking. Got the most popular guy in the neighborhood is either the guy who's got the snow blower and helps out, or the guy who's got the roof rake and helps out. So my friend is the most popular guy because I got some work in. Oh man, this will end eventually. Tell me it will end. I've been assuring you. Now I'm asking you to assure me. What's on the rundown tonight? Yeah, it's a bad story out of West Warwick. Not good. And of course, internationally, this has just gone to a point where you can't even fathom what ISIS is doing. Coming back home, there's a threat of a bus strike, and 3 hours is the key issue back and forth between the company. That's all the number that was towed this particular storm, which I guess is less than the last storm. So things are getting better in Providence. Very sad day for the Mount St. Charles and Cumberland family. And we'll check your state of mind as we go. All right, moving quickly. Civil rights violation here. Yeah. The headline, Islamic school vandalism. Now the FBI is involved here, and I guess this was hardly a benign exercise by the unknown graffiti writer on the Islamic School of Rhode Island that is in West Warwick. Steve Nielsen filed this report.
To the person who did this, I want to say this to him or to her, that we have nothing but prayers for you.
This is the Islamic School of Rhode Island in West Warwick. Saturday night, the school was covered in offensive graffiti, all of it anti-Islam, and nearly all of it too crude to show you.
We are a school. We have kids. They are just kids.
The principal of the pre-K through 8th grade school walked me around. He says a single man was caught on surveillance cameras spray painting.
He wrote this. Now, this is a hate crime. So he doesn't hide anything. He came for a message, and he is releasing it very frankly.
He's worried this act of vandalism could grow into violence, though. The FBI is investigating.
All right, so now this whole thing has kind of risen to a significant level in terms of the attention, and the Council of Churches had an event today, and the Reverend Donald Anderson talked to me about it on the radio this afternoon.
You know, all of us belong to faith traditions that want to see a peaceable world where people live respecting each other and honoring each other. And sure, they have great disagreements about religion and philosophy and politics, but that those differences can be talked about and debated in places like talk radio, as opposed to, doing hurtful things to one another.
The interesting thing is just that and listen, I understand why the Council of Churches responded. I think the community outpouring of support for the Islamic School of Rhode Island is absolutely appropriate. I don't know that they need to be talking about world affairs and ISIS and everything else and legitimize the community's reaction by talking to international causes. It's tough being an everyday Muslim these days. You know, this conversation in the Middle East has just gotten so crazy, and the events have gotten so heinous that if we can't all tell the difference between peace-loving Muslims and what's going on over there, then we all need our head examined. But I did find something kind of interesting. This gentleman participated in the event today, Steve Alquist, who was here just last week talking about protests across 93 and 95 and didn't think they deserved to be felonies with proposed legislation that are happening at the State House. Steve is now heading up this humanistic organization, which took a place with the Council of Churches. Steve is a committed atheist. So now the humanists are able to sit with the Council of Churches, who are God-fearing, devoted people, and enter the same political environment. I'm not going to draw a conclusion. I'm just going to note it and let you think about that for a while. It's interesting. Alrighty, next item here, and it is all pure evil, isn't it? I mean, the CNN.com headline, the Egyptian warplanes now are bombing ISIS. I mean, this place has just become a complete zoo, the Middle East, and the evil is just almost undescribable.
It was still dark when F-16 fighter jets took off, striking training camps and weapons depots along Libya's coast. One of the targets was Derna, headquarters for many Islamic militants who have sworn allegiance to ISIS. The bombings came a day after ISIS released a video that appears to show the execution of 21 Egyptian Christians. Masked jihadis marched the captives along a beach. A few whispered their final prayers. Then all are beheaded. The slain were kidnapped last month by militants in Libya. They were among the hundreds of thousands of Egyptians who traveled there looking for work in the oil fields.
And I mean, it's just inconstant. You can't, there's no words. The Egyptian response is no boots on the ground as well. They're committed to that. Of course, we've got this new effort by the Obama administration to get Congress to authorize a less than 3-year quasi-hybrided new war, not really, it's kind of very murky. And there's an extremist convention that will take place here in America, in Washington, over the next few days, trying to get to the root causes of why people join groups like ISIS. Good luck on that one. Next item. This is the key issue in what could be a bus driver strike that could disrupt 20,000 students come next week. I think they're going to wait. Here's the headline. They're going to put off the strike for 20 days and have a cooling off period, which is, responsible, I think. Here's the thing. I was on the radio today, Dan York, weekdays noon to 3 on WPRO, and taking phone calls on this. And it seems that this 2.5-hour shift is the big thing. They want a guaranteed 3-hour shift in the morning and 3-hour shift in the afternoon, which adds an hour to their guaranteed work day and pay. The funny thing is, after talking to a lot of folks, it appears that most days these bus drivers, even in tough weather days, don't get past 2.5 hours for a shift, even if they're delivering kids for 3 schools. Well, they say, well, the bus monitors and their union get 3 hours minimum guaranteed. And then somebody called the show and said, you know what? The reason why the bus monitors get 3 hours guaranteed is because they clean up the bus after the bus is parked, while the drivers say, see ya tomorrow. So maybe the drivers want to help cleaning up, at least for their demand for an extra full hour a day, 5 hours a week. They get $17 to $24 an hour, so it's pretty heady for the company. Stay tuned. 250 towed? Yeah. So you'd think, holy cow, in one storm? Yeah, in the city of Providence. The headline there. Yes. Here's the good news. It's better than the 400 that were towed in the storm prior. Earth to the city of Providence. How about alternate side of the street parking so that everybody has a chance to navigate around this storm? Because sometimes there's just nowhere to put your car. Hello? And finally, tonight, just condolences to the Belisle family. Dave Belisle has been a guest on this program and on the radio show. He's a fellow parishioner at our church in Cumberland. He's known to the Mount St. Charles family as the devout coach, along with his dad, Bill Belisle, the legend. And of course, he coaches the Cumberland Little League team and went to the Nationals against that very popular now Chicago team. Well, Nancy, his wife, passed away this past Friday from a courageous battle with colon cancer. And what's amazing is about how that family operated through all of that national attention. And it was very poignant that Nancy came out and spent time with the boys and with Dave. While all this was going on, she wasn't very good. And even last week, while the Chicago, Illinois controversy over the ineligible team members was raging on, Dave took the time to respond to media inquiries and make commentary about his perspective on the entire thing, all while it wasn't going very well, obviously, with his wife's health. God bless her. God bless that family. And it seems like most of what they're doing in the mourning process is private, and we'll certainly keep it that way. Our condolences. State of mind. Important that you tell us what you think. 228-1886. Email me. Call me. Facebook post at me. Tweet whatever you'd like. That's how you do it. Here's a Facebook post I found interesting, or Jess did. She always gives me these. Hey, Dan, wondering if our officials are planning to prevent flooding when and if it rains heavily and all the snow melts. Hey, Ed, one thing at a time. Oh, my gosh. I would think that we're probably going to have a mud season here, the likes of which northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine see every spring. But it will be welcome, right? I'm sure they are. Then again, I'm not so sure what they're going to do. We'll have to take it one day at a time. When we come back, the story of an interesting trip to Paris, no doubt. Stay with us. And so, learning experiences can be varied, especially when you take a trip and find out that you're kind of in the middle of an international incident. Here's a headline from the folks at URI who let us know about this. URI students, professor marched in solidarity with French citizens following attacks on the magazine. As we know, the Charlie Hebdo situation was something that we talked about often here. It's all, I mean, but it seems like we've got an international incident and a terrorist threat du jour, and it's almost as if we've almost forgotten about this. Not really, but sort of. Dr. Lawrence Erickson is with us. Doctor, thanks. Professor, appreciate you coming by.
Thank you for inviting us.
French International Engineering Program at URI.
Yes.
That is interesting. We'll have to figure out what that's all about. Ian Canterman's a sophomore, majoring in
biomedical engineering.
Biomedical engineering. Another one of those phenomenal URI engineering students that the world knows about. Sometimes folks in Rhode Island don't really understand or leading the league and everything, right?
That's right.
Nice to have you guys. So, Professor, what happened? You guys have an annual trip or whatever, or a special trip out to France, and you end up in the middle of this whole thing, right?
Right. Yes. This was part of the January term, the J-term classes that the university launched last year. This was the first time I took a group of students to France. So this was an inaugural trip for the French J-term, and we were doing this in conjunction really with the international engineering program. So we were visiting a few different companies. We had set up meetings with companies where we would go to visit Total, the French petroleum company, Vinci Construction, which is a big construction company in France. And then we also had a meeting with Schneider Electric, which has a facility close to URI. So the trip was oriented around the international engineering program. We started off in Compiègne, which is about an hour north of Paris, and that's where we have an exchange agreement with a technical university there. It's the Université de Technologie de Compiègne, which does sound like a lot of...
You do the French thing pretty good.
Sounds like, yes. It's a lot of syllables, so we often just call it UTC. But UTC is our partner institution, so we flew into France, and we spent the first 3 days at UTC in Compiègne.
Okay, but you flew in the day after the incident-ish? Is that when it happened?
Let's see. We flew in on Monday.
The day before.
Oh, the day...
Two days before.
Oh, it happened while you were there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, welcome to France, right?
Yes.
So, what was your reaction when this whole thing went down?
Well, this was the first time I left the country at all. I've been to the Virgin Islands and on a cruise, outside in the ocean and whatnot. But other than that, I've never left the country. So,
What's your
being
hometown?
that Brick, New Jersey.
Okay.
So I'm from New Jersey, and I've never been out of the country before. So going to France was life-changing as a whole. But then when we found out what had happened, it was just, wait, I had to, wait, what? I had to open my eyes and realize what had happened. I was getting messages and phone calls from my parents who were trying to reach me. And because of the time difference, I didn't have an international plan, so I couldn't contact any of them until I gained Wi-Fi. So I saw all of their messages bombarding me, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know this had happened. So it was, and then to see it all take place was just, it was an eye-opener.
So what happened? So you're in the middle of this program, the schedule of learning that you're getting involved with. This comes down. You deviated from the course, at least for a time being, right?
Well, we stayed more or less on track. Wednesday is when the attacks occurred, and we were in a meeting at the university in Compiègne, and one of my students slid her cell phone over to me and showed me that she had been texted a message which talked about the events that had the massacre that had occurred in Paris. And I was stunned. I remember just feeling nauseated. And that was on Wednesday. Thursday was the day we were planning on going to Paris. That's when we were going to leave Compiègne and go to Paris for the rest of the trip. And since the attacks seemed to be so targeted, that particular newspaper, those particular journalists, I guess I didn't feel that there was a great risk for our group. The students, I mean, you could ask Ian, but the students also gave me an impression that they didn't feel like they were really at risk in Paris.
Well, neither did millions of others who decided to show up and say they weren't too happy with the event, right? I mean, so clearly it was a targeted massacre, and clearly there was an outpouring of historic proportion, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
How was it?
It was incredible to see everyone come together for one cause, to kind of show that they weren't afraid of the terrorists, because I think that was the main message. I saw a lot of posters and whatnot that showed, that they weren't afraid. A lot of drawings, to show the freedom of speech. Liberté, égalité, and fraternité is the French motto, and that means liberty, freedom, and or liberty, equality, and brotherhood. And I saw Muslims. I saw different walks of life, in this march. Although I do know that there were some people that still weren't too happy about what Charlie Hebdo had done, but they weren't as radical as the brothers that committed the act.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk to the professor and student about what it's like to go for one particular purpose and come back with a world experience that you couldn't read the script for. Stay with us. So these are, now you're a producer, right? Anybody can be, right? Just get your iPhone up there. And, what was this? Obviously, it's the evening. The evening of what that I'm seeing here? Are you seeing your own video? That's your own video.
Oh,
Look
wow.
at that. There you go. Oh, you didn't know what I was talking
I
about.
didn't know
That's
you
your
were
video.
showing it. Yeah, so when I filmed that part, it was at nighttime. We were finally able to get onto the metro, because the metro was shut down during the portion of the day when the marches were taking place. So we were able to get on the metro. We took it to where our living area was, where the auberge was, which was the hotel we were in. And we couldn't really escape the march because it was the route was kind of going through the street that we lived on. And so we came out, and all of a sudden we heard a jazz band playing. And they were just kind of playing, and people were kind of almost like they were celebrating, in a sense. They were kind of celebrating life and defying the terrorists that committed their act. And it was incredible to see everyone do that. And there was actually one instance where we saw almost like a Chinese dragon, but instead of a Chinese dragon, people were holding up a pen, a cartoonist's pen or pencil, to kind of to express that symbol of freedom of expression.
Just tuned in, our URI student and our URI professor were playing just a pretty cool international engineering learning experience, and ended up in France a couple of days before the Charlie Hebdo massacre. First time teaching experience for you, huh?
Definitely, yes. It was without a doubt, it was the most moving public experience I've been part of.
Really?
They estimate between 1.2 and 1.5 million people came together for that march, the march that took place on Sunday. I believe it was January 10th.
10th or 11th.
And the amount of people who were there, and I know Ian, at one point I think Ian said it best, that it was really the feeling of unity that was the most moving part of it. All of these people coming together and being unified by their support for freedom of expression and really their defiance of terrorism. and it was such an incredibly large amount of people, very peaceful, very calm. The part that took place in the early part of the day was mostly somber, but there were these moments where you felt a kind of celebration, celebratory mood would kind of break out. Certainly, everybody was saddened about the massacre, about the deaths.
Yeah.
But there was also a little bit of a feeling of overcoming those acts of terrorism.
You brought
and
some of
moving on.
the stuff. You brought the original Charlie Hebdo. Now, of course, this newspaper was so controversial that you know, many newspapers here in America would not print that.
Oh.
Just because of the the First Amendment controversy that was going on, and this is the same kind of shirt, I guess. That
Yeah. So
there's
the
always
Je suis
shirts being
Charlie.
sold, right? Or is that your shirt?
Je suis Charlie. We bought this Sunday morning. We were at a market, an outdoor market, and there was somebody selling them. It was a fundraiser for Reporters Without Borders. And so we thought that was a great thing to contribute to.
So you go over to France to try to learn a little engineering, get a little international flavor. First trip, Jersey kid. Jersey kid. Brick is south, though. It's not really Jersey. We could have the debate. But it's south of me, Patterson. So anyway, you come away with this incredible experience off a tragedy. It's got to be a mixed feeling for you. Yes? Did you grow up a little bit, you think?
I certainly think so. We actually had a roundtable discussion about the attacks that had took place. We had that at the University of Rhode Island, and that was also a sobering experience to hear the impressions of other professors and other students that were curious about this event and what their thoughts on it were. There was a professor there who was a practicing Muslim, and she gave her input about the attack, and it was very interesting to see both sides of it, to see what it's like to be a Muslim in France and to see that in a new light, because this had to have happened because of some reason.
Well, I wish I could talk to you all day about it. Obviously, you're enriched by it. So what do you do for your next trick? What's next on the international studies, Professor?
Well, I am planning on doing this again next year, taking a group of students to France. I hope, while the events were definitely a great educational experience, I hope the second time is less eventful.
Yeah, I bet. You get down to the stuff that engineers get mired in.
Right.
All that technical stuff.
Yes, all the technical
That's
things.
way over my head. Thanks for the visit. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
URI is
Thank
doing
you.
a lot of great stuff day in, day out, and we should constantly note it, no doubt. And speaking of, I hear there's a big ball game tomorrow. We'll talk about it
Oh,
next.
yeah.
Stay with us. Yeah, speaking of URI, by the way, there's such great things that are going on academically at URI. It is a jewel here in this state, and we need to remind ourselves of that from time to time. Coach stopped by a couple of weeks ago.
We can't overwork them, but we can't underwork them, because again, our style of basketball is not a, loose style. It's a rugged, rough, hard-playing style of basketball that takes its toll. So we got to keep as the coaches can't screw these guys up here with 6 games to go.
Well, he did stop by a couple weeks ago, but that's a post-game press conference getting ready for the big one. UMass, 7 o'clock at the Ryan Center. Sell it out. It's for first place. See you tomorrow on the radio on WPRO. Bye-bye.